Today on the AWC podcast, we're talking about do you really need a budget from the March issue of the American Window Cleaner Magazine. Well, thanks for hanging out with me today. And as you know, the AWC podcast highlights a different article straight from the American Window Cleaner Magazine. And if you aren't getting your monthly magazine mailed to your door, just go to awcmag.com/sub to get yours now. Every issue has loads more articles, reviews, pictures, and of course, the famous sticker sheet made custom every single month. Make sure to grab yours. If you haven't gotten it yet, you must be living under a rock. Jump on the bandwagon and get your copy. But today we are talking about do we really need a budget? And this is actually by Dan Plata. Super cool dude. I've done a lot of stuff with him and talked to him quite a bit. He's a really a good guy to have under your wings. He's a smart guy. And this whole article is actually talking about a budget. What is a successful budget? Do we need a budget? How do you do it? And I think that this is a really important article because a lot of us just kind of go by the seat of our pants, right? We are here. We may know how to run a business. We like to be out in the field, some of us. Some of us just want to have a company, if you will. But a budget is what dictates how your company grows, where your marketing dollars come from, if you're profitable or not. There's a lot of stuff that actually comes from a budget that if you don't have a budget, you just miss out on. I really do like Dan, though, too. He puts things out there in kind of a way that we can kind of understand. One of the funny things he says is that Mike Tyson says that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And that right there is 2020 in a nutshell. A lot of us who didn't have budgets going into 2020 didn't have a parachute big enough to make the whole process, the whole year, the whole everything comfortable, right? And that's what 2020 was for us. So now we're in 2021. There's a whole new kind of array of things, and a lot of us, a lot of you that have gone through now 2020 have kind of 2021 to make up for all the things we were lacking. A big thing with budgeting is you have to look at successful companies. Successful companies will always have a budget. They'll always have a budget. And it's to find out, like I said, spending, but just, forecasting. He says the biggest and best companies in the world spend months building, refining budgets for the next quarter, next year, next 3 years, and the next 5 to 10 years. They're budgeting out upwards of 10 years. I mean, that right there is giving you kind of an idea of how important a budget is. If you don't have one, budgets are boring. I know that, you know that. But they're so valuable to being able to kind of grow your company to where you want it or the health of your company. He says if they're doing it and it's working for them, chances are it's something you should be doing too. If you have your sights set on something bigger and better than where you are today. And that's just budgets in general, right? Having that is more of a financial understanding of your company. I always say that the interesting part of budgeting, if you will, is the marketing side, the advertising side, the ups and downs of seasons. If you have a budget set up, you then can get through all those times. You know where your marketing dollars are going for advertising. You know where your marketing dollars are going, for Facebook ads. You can kind of know what percentage things are kind of going, when they're happening and where it's coming from. It's pretty interesting. He says, it's the first step to working on your business. He's talking about getting a budget. He says, while I'm getting a little burned out on the cliche work on your business, not in your business, The active budgeting is the best way to take a step out of the day-to-day hustle and grind and force yourself into the 30,000 foot view. It's basically looking at your company from the outside. There's no doubt that on any given day, we as service business owners are dealing with operational issues, customer service issues, employee issues, and by the time it's all done, we've spent the entire time chasing other people's problems rather than working proactively to have a plan to alleviate them from happening in the first place. It's so smart. A lot of times in business, we kind of allow our businesses to kind of run, and we go, whoa, that stinks that happened. But we didn't put things into place in the first part to make sure it didn't happen. Or what if it did happen? How do we save ourselves? Right? He says it's your business playbook. Without a budget, you're simply reacting to what comes your way. Going into the day, week, month, or year with the outlook of, I'm just going to work hard and make as much money as I can. It's like showing up to a football game without a playbook. That's exactly it, right? Here's what I'm guilty of. I don't know if you are. I'm guilty of having a company run, and when things are doing good, reinvesting more. When things are doing bad, I don't reinvest. But it's all connected to if I'm doing good at the exact same minute. If it's the middle of winter, I'm not spending money on things like I would in, spring. And the problem with that is that by the time you start to make money, say we're spring rich, you're spring rich, but your advertising dollar, you've missed the mark because you didn't spend when you were becoming busy. You're trying to spend now that you have the money to be busy. It's one of those things that you just kind of let things happen and then figure out what's going on from there. And that's the biggest part. You need a playbook. You need a playbook, and that's where budgets come in. He said it's the foundation of your goals and metrics. Setting goals with which a lot of us, and I'm not a huge fan of doing like a 5-year because I just feel like it's just so far out there that you can calculate down to a 5-year, but things can change. One little thing can change, and it can change your entire possibility. And budgets, on the other side, you are not actually predicting. You will use them to predict your possible futures, but what you are predicting is when money is coming in, when money is going out, what you're going to do with that money, and if you're busy or you're not, you know what's happening with your funds. You can plan from that. So he goes over a few steps to basically starting your budget. He says, step 1, sales and marketing. Start with your marketing by month and build your sales based off of that. So remember, you can eat an entire cow if you start one bite at a time, right? He said, start off your marketing by month and build your sales based off that. How much are you going to spend in the marketing? How many clients is that going to get you? That's really the connection. When you start taking actual and connecting it with something that's planned or a budget like that. Step 2, expenses. Look at your historical expenses as a percent of your historical revenue. Identify the ones that you think you can improve on and the ones you think you're just fine the way they are. Right? Set it all out there. Now you know if, hey, I need to have a dumpster because my shop produces a lot of garbage and we have leaf debris and old screens. That is an expense that is okay. Put that in there because guess what? With an average, say, 2% increase, in 4 years, you're still going to have a dumpster, right? So put that in there. Step 3, capacity. To be able to hit your sales target, you're going to need some equipment and labor. It's a good idea to double check your assumptions about labor spend and make sure that you are allocating enough to cover the cost of recruiting, hiring, training up the employees that you'll need to be able to hit your sales target. There's costs associated that we don't always budget for. and we just have happen. And all of a sudden you're like, oh gosh, yeah, I forget. It's expensive hiring employees. If you want to be $1 million company, if you're not already, if you are, awesome. That's awesome. But if you want to be $1 million company, and that's your sexy number, if you will, you need to figure out, okay, how much can one tech produce? Okay, we'll say for even numbers, one tech will produce $100,000 in work a year. Now, obviously, that's not quite right. That number's a little higher than that, but just for even numbers here. That means you're going to need to have 10 techs to make $1 million. But on top of 10 techs, at that point, you're going to need somebody in the office. So now you have an office staff, 10 techs. You have 11 employees to get you to $1 million. Two techs per truck on a residential crew and one in a route. So say you're going to have at least one full-time route guy. So now you have one of those 10 in there. Now you have 9 techs left. Well, that doesn't really work out, two to a truck. Does that mean you're working with another route, or are you having all, like, these are the things when you put these budgets together, you can break down, just like systems and planning, what you actually need and then plan for that, right? If you're going to need a new truck in spring of 2022, because your growth, your plan, and your budgeting tells you that, well, you can start now setting money aside for a down payment on the truck, or the tools in the truck, or the, cap, or the ladders, or whatever. It's what's having a budget is made. He said, if you made it this far, you win. Here's the simplest answer. There are pre-made target budgets available at his website, there, yourblueskies.com, that do all those things. And the cool thing about Dan is he always is giving stuff free. Just like, hey, go here, check this out, do this, whatever. In the article, he actually is giving away budgets, they're already made. Go look it up and then tailor that. Now, go and get it. So that's it. Your budget's built, and don't worry. You don't need to be correct. By building this, you already have a deeper understanding in your business, and you now have a playbook. And that's the big thing that I think people kind of, even budgeting and planning in general, people are more worried about this being like an end-all plan that they have to stick, but it's not. It's not. Let's be honest. Owning and running a business is like riding a bike in the sand. You know where you're going, or you can see where you want to go. You don't know how you're going to get there, though. You just don't. It's going to take you kind of where you want, where it wants. And that is business. So planning these things, don't ever feel like once you make a budget, you can't change a budget. Once you make a plan, you can't change a plan. That's not the truth at all. You can change it and tailor it. And as things progress, maybe you're growing much faster than you thought. Maybe you're growing a little bit slower than you thought. How can you improve that? Right? Just like anybody, we've had growth years of triple digits. And sometimes I've had years where I've picked up an account that equated to about 60%. One account was 60% of my previous year. Well, it's really, really hard to plan for that because that's one of those things that doesn't really happen very often. You're not out there looking for these giant, multi-hundreds of thousands of dollars accounts. It's just not something you're doing. So planning and changing helps you kind of pivot, right? But either way, I appreciate you listening today. And if you haven't gotten your subscription yet, please do go and get that. I think you'll really, really enjoy it. You'll find it awesome, and you'll get a lot out of it. I mean, you're already listening to a podcast like this. You know what you want in business, and surrounding yourself in it is even that much better. It's really nice to just have the paper version in front of you too. So go to awcmag.com/sub to get yours today. Do it. Subscribe. It's awesome. You'll love it. You're going to get it every single month mailed to your door, and you're going to get the stickers so you can represent an industry that we are all super, super proud of. So definitely go and do that. Thanks to Dan Plata. Thanks to American Window Cleaner Magazine, and we will see you again next week.